And we're back. Ryan York, how are you doing, buddy?
Good. How's it going, Neal?
Oh, it's going. It's going good, buddy. It's another day in the world of business brokerage. I know you've been busy all day. How was your weekend? How was your Monday?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been very busy fielding calls. You know how that goes. You jump in on them and help me out throughout the day, but lots of interest in a few of our listings and generating some interest in others. And I'll be glad when the doldrums of summer's over and people get back into thinking about buying a business. So.
Yeah, a little bit of a slowdown. I can't say I'm not enjoying it. The summers are people go on vacations, but it was the first week in a while that I was like, wow, I'm not back to back every day, all day. You know, I'm just gonna enjoy this for now because it never lasts. By the end of the week, you know how it turns out. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's definitely been busy. I'm excited about today's program. Our guest, you met him recently, and have you heard a lot of buzz about this EOS thing, or the kids talking about EOS in the streets out there?
So I have never even heard of it, and I had to I'm ashamed to say I had to Google it, and then I learned from it. I'm very excited now that I understand what it's all about. I can't wait to hear more about it from our guest, and especially being able to relay and talk about it to our clients. Something that I wish was around 10 years ago. So I'm really excited about this.
I agree, and I have seen it. I've seen a lot of success stories. I'm excited to have Carson come on and tell us about it firsthand. So let's quit the dilly-dallying and get to business. I know we got a few points of business here before we bring him on. So let's get into the quick tip. And as I often do, I have a video and a short one. So let's play this. For business owners planning their exits, number one, 75% of business owners do not do any type of succession or exit planning. Fact number two, it takes 6 to 9 months for small business to sell, 9 to 12 or longer for larger or middle market or bigger businesses to sell. And number three, if you go to the world's largest businesses for sale site, the odds are 1 out of 5 of those, 20%, actually sell. The other 4 out of 5 don't sell. What does that mean for you, the business owner planning ahead? You got to get a valuation. You got to know how your business fits into your bigger financial plan and what the exit strategy is. If you haven't learned the process of selling a business for best results, reach out to an intermediary. That's what I do. I sell other people's businesses. All right, shameless plug there at the end, but I think you get the point. Yep. People are ill-prepared. The odds are stacked against them. And that stat about most people not planning ahead, I mean, I don't know about you, but I know what my net worth is on a daily basis. Like I'm checking my bank account, but a lot of people, they're not checking their business's bank account. They're their business bank account, but they're not checking their valuation of their business, which ties into their personal net worth.
You know, it's amazing to me that statistic that 75% of business owners don't plan, but yet they work so hard in their business. It brings them a lot of, freedom in their life, right? That's why they own a business, not only income wise, but also the lifestyle. But yet, like their own children, they're not paying attention to it. And that really is amazing to me. And I was going to ask if you knew why you think that statistic is so high. Do you think it's because people were born into the business? Maybe their parents gave it to them and they were never properly educated. Like, why do you think that is?
Why they don't plan ahead? I think a lot of it is same reason they don't go to the doctor. They're just kind of stuck in the now, and maybe they don't want to think about when they can't have what they're used to. It's easier just to keep their head in the sand. And hey, I do it too. It's just so easy to focus on today instead of that planning ahead piece and having a succession plan. I know why most of the businesses that listed don't sell. Most of that's overpriced, or they've just passed their prime, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But the failure to plan, the good news is the bigger the business, the more exit planning that you see. But still, 75% of business owners don't plan. So that's the quick tip: plan ahead, get your head out of the sand.
Do you think one of the things I think you've mentioned before, and then before we bring our guest on real quick, is that this book, E-Myth Revisited, it's a real simple read, right? Easy, small paperback. Changed my life when I sold my first business, made me think like a franchise, even though I was not a franchise. and just bring all systems into play. So I just think that's a good segue into what we're going to get into next, because it's easy read. I mean, something to think about.
Michael Gerber, E-Myth Revisited. That is a good one. And I like that because I heard an interview with him recently, and he's an old man now. He's still doing his thing. And he sounds angry because nobody ever listened to him. I mean, this is a guy that like coined the term work on your business, not in your business. And he's been preaching it forever, but people just still do it. It's human nature. It's human nature. But the ones that do it, I mean, those are the ones that are really crushing it. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to Carson. But we can't get to Carson yet because we got a deal of the week.
Yep.
Let's look at this. Today's deal of the week is this bakery. This, Brian, is a sweet deal, right? So you can find this on our website, on Biz Buy Sell, on Business Buyer, businessbroker.net. You can find it in this link. I'll put this link in the chat.
Also on our own website, right? VRBizTriangle.com.
Yep. So that's kind of a screenshot, and there's a link to it. The reason I like this one is they've got a full team of bakers, and there's a million restaurants for sale, but the bakery sector is super high margin. I mean, sugar is like it's really cheap. The cost of goods sold is really low, so really high margin on this business. And it's kind of a retirement sale. There's valid reason for sale. Nothing wrong with the business. Been around for almost a decade. Great location. So it's got a lot of great things for it. It's perfect for that either the person who loves baking, or even the entrepreneur that has somebody they want to plug in that has that passion for that stuff. And it's one of these family businesses. I love the family business. This isn't like a tobacco shop or a sin type of business. This is just a bakery where you can get cupcakes and other family-friendly stuff. So check that one out on the interwebs, on our listing sites, on our website, and we'll give you all the pertinent details if it's a good fit for you after you get an NDA signed. All righty. Well, good. So we got our deal of the week done. I want to introduce next Carson Clark, who came onto my radar recently, and we hit the ground running. So we had a really good connection regarding kind of how he helps owners and how that fits in to what we do on our team. And let's face it, like we talked about, most people just aren't ready, and they are the business. They don't work on the business much. And Carson Clark is an implementer with EOS. I'm going to have him explain more about what that is. But his experience of going through this program, I mean, he really lives and breathes it, and he really talks the talk, he walks the walk. He's got an incredible background, and I'm really excited to bring him on the program and share a little bit about what he does. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Carson Clark entering the Broker's Babble. Welcome to the Broker's Babble. Carson, how are you, sir?
Doing excellent. Thanks for having me, guys. Great to be with you, and looking forward to the conversation today.
Well, looking forward to having it with you, Carson. Before we go any farther, I want to invite you to kind of give your own introduction, kind of pick it up where I left off, and share anything you want to about you.
Absolutely. Well, for the record, I wish I could just bring you with me wherever I go and have you intro me. That'd be great. But yeah, a little bit about my story is I actually began my career at a company with annual revenues of $20 billion. And so I was just swimming through the bureaucracy of that. One thing I think is funny is my email was Clark C35, meaning there were at least 34 other people with my initials at the company. So just to give some insight into that, I realized that wasn't for me. And I transitioned to a smaller firm and just
literally just a number.
Yeah, I was a cog in the wheel, just a number, one of 100,000. And,
wow.
And, when I went to a smaller firm, I just love that everyone by name, what's going on. You can impact the business much faster in a more meaningful way. And so eventually I took the opportunity. I was running a 75-person company, And at that point in time, a friend of mine introduced me to EOS. In this moment, we had a really fractured relationship with the leadership team and the advisory board. Not that you've ever seen that in your interactions. Declining profits, and we didn't really have consistent processes. And so that's kind of when EOS entered my life. We transformed this business over a couple of years, increased the profitability 55%, repairing those relationships. And at that point, I just realized I was all in on EOS. I was in love with it. And that's why I do what I do today, to help people go through their EOS journey.
Wow. That's a great story. And you've seen the results. That's what I'm talking about with the walk, that you've been there, done that. And you got into private equity, you got into the private equity space, which I want to get to a little bit more, but let's just back up a little bit. Like Brian was saying, he'd never heard of EOS. Can you just kind of break it down? What the heck is this EOS anyway? Let's start there.
Yeah. I love the question. We actually have a book called "What the Heck is EOS?" So that's a good question. Yeah, I'll have to give it to you, get you a copy. But so EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it is not a software system. It's a management system that allows you to harness human energy. So if I was to kind of put it in a nutshell and say like 3 things that EOS does, is it helps you create a vision with your leadership team. It helps you get traction, meaning accountability, the right people in the right seats executing on that vision. And third is it helps you improve that team health, because we find that oftentimes leadership teams have a lot of interpersonal conflict, and we help root that out and get them humming together, enjoying the success they have together.
Okay. So, I mean, the types of firms that could benefit from this are disorganized. I mean, I was talking about the head in the sand. Me and Brian meet a lot of operators that they're not delegating well. They're doing it themselves. They have high margins oftentimes, but they're just carrying too much weight. I mean, are these the types of people or the leading teams that can benefit the most? Who can benefit the most from a system like this?
Yeah. So what I always say is we're talking like 10 to 250 employees. Size-wise is kind of our sweet spot. I've had some smaller clients. I've had a lot larger, much larger. So the principles are universal, but it really was created for that small to medium-sized business. What you have to have is a growth mindset. You want to grow your business. You know, you're more afraid of the status quo than you are of change. And you're willing to be open and honest with your team. We're very transparent in the work we do with the leadership team. So the owners need to be ready to kind of enter the danger with their team there.
Yeah. We didn't talk about this question. I'm curious, is there a certain age that seems more, I imagine the older folks that are towards the end of their career, they're going to be less open-minded to change. Do you find there's kind of a sweet spot or a part of someone's career where there's the midpoint or early on, or I would imagine the later they are, the less likely they are to adopt a new system like this. Am I correct?
Well, I'll do the classic professor answer of it depends. But I will say that when people are like, hey, I want to sell my business right now, that's a hard time to say, well, let's take a step back and, and really get after this. Or they'll say, man, where were you 10 years ago? I needed to meet you 10 years ago. But at the same time, I've seen people, I've got a client in late 60s that's like all in on it, younger 70s. So it definitely gives confidence to newer leaders, but really any leader who feels like they've hit a wall, hit the ceiling, they're stuck, and they just want to get more out of their business. Anyone who's in that is really our sweet spot. So I will say age-wise, maybe if they're about ready to exit, it is harder
Maybe
in
too late.
general.
Yeah.
But there are exceptions to that.
Yeah, and we were talking before we went live about how maybe someone doesn't realize they need it until they get the valuation done, and then they learn about how value works and how if they're set on hitting a certain price, and then they'll see that they need to reorient their team, they need to grow a little bit more, they need to have a different mindset to reach their goals, and then that may steer them towards going down this path.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I watched a couple of these videos by this Neal Isaacs guy recently. Not to shamelessly fangirl over here, I guess, but I like what you said in some of your videos about people wanting to value their business on, the boat they want to get or college tuition, and that's coming up, or the house they want to buy in retirement. But the reality is it's generally based on profit. And so
it is. Yeah.
So yeah, I think people who have that kind of are enlightened, knowing the true value of their business and don't like what they see, it's a great opportunity for them to increase their value through implementing EOS. And honestly, I've heard many success stories of people saying, I actually got a higher multiple because the buyers found out we were on EOS and they loved the system so much. It just spoke to, it just gave them more confidence in the company.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that because it's a popular program right now. And we always say there's the 3 Ps, the people, the process, and the profit. And the EOS really helps in that process piece. Like, we have a way of doing this business, and it's not all up in our head. There's a process here. So EOS checks that box. I want to throw it to Brian momentarily, but I got one more question about EOS, and it's kind of like, this isn't the first coaching or facilitation program. I hear people talking about the Maxwell program. Tony Robbins has some leadership type stuff. So like, where does EOS fit into this pantheon? If it is a coaching program, which I don't know that it is, like, where does it fit into the landscape of other models that are available?
Yeah. So I think you'll never hear me say anything bad about another product out there. I just have great confidence in the product we have. But what I'll say is what I like about it is it truly is a complete system. Like, it is a holistic way of managing your business. It's not just addressing one part of your business. We're looking at vision, people, data, how you solve issues, process, like you mentioned, and lastly, traction. So we really fully encompass your whole business with what we have. Also, it's really simple. You don't need a PhD to use EOS, which that's our market, small and medium-sized businesses. It's quick. We're all about the 80-20 rule of getting 80% of the solution, going with it, not letting perfect be the enemy of improvement. So I think that, and I'll also say our proven process, we actually have over 20,000 companies now running on EOS worldwide. Wow. And there's about 650 EOS implementers out there doing what I do across the globe. So I think this system at the beginning was kind of wet cement, right? Where it was working with companies, figuring out what works best. But at this time, we really feel it's dialed in to best suit the needs of these entrepreneurs. So I could say more, but did I answer your question?
You did. Now, I think that's a good answer. Brian, what questions did you have for Carson?
So Carson, I do have a couple of good questions for you. So coming from, like I said earlier, I own my own small businesses, and mine happen to be real estate brokerages. But a lot of what I found was, conceptually, I understand everything we're talking about. But, as a small business owner who's not just working on it, but I always had to work in my business, how does someone, one, there's so many systems that you have to kind of piece together to make something like this work. And what I always found is I was like a deer in headlights. I always knew the things I had to do that would help me. The problem was I never knew how to piece them together, Zapier or these different types of plugs and things like that to make the reporting and make all my team cohesive. So my question is, how someone who's in my position, there are many small business owners that are and were, how do we handle that in bite-sized pieces? How do we get started? Like, it just seems like such an uphill battle that I'm just like, oh, forget it. I don't even think I could even start this process. So being an EOS implementer, can you explain to myself and our audience, like, how does someone start this process and tackle this?
Yeah, no. First off, thank you for running a small business, because I think that's what makes the country go round. So appreciate that you've had that experience. And so second is it's really pretty simple, and it really goes back to that proven process I mentioned. Is we begin with a 90-minute meeting where I walk clients through. First off is I do some listening. I say I got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So I'm just going to ask them questions, learn about their business, and better understand if I think EOS is a good fit for them. And then I explain the system to them. And we basically chunk it out. It comes out to about 5 full-day sessions a year. So 5 full-day sessions per year. I am working with them, kind of taking those bite-sized chunks you mentioned, and then they're leaving with some homework, some takeaways, their own things they want to change in the business. And then we come back, and revisit again a little bit later. So we say it's a spaced learning program. We don't do it all in like a week and just flood everyone and say, see you later. We really space it out for them in bite-sized chunks so that it's more manageable for them.
So one of my other questions is, so you have, I guess I'm still trying to understand, as our audience probably would be too, EOS system with let's just plug your product, for example. Is it one system that implements many other systems, or am I having to piece together a dashboard that I'm looking at? Like, how does it kind of play out so I can look at my business on a dashboard? So that's where I'm just a little confused. Is it many different pieces, or is it one system that does it all?
Yeah, so it's a great clarifying question. So it's not a software program. Like, there's not a EOS. We are building an EOS software, but EOS is not known as this is a software system. It really is a system to help execute in your business. And it's probably better said, it's a simple set of tools. So let me give you an example. We have what's called a vision traction organizer. It is a 2-page document that has 8 questions on it, like what are your core values, what is your core focus, down to what's your 1-year plan, what are your quarterly priorities, things like that. And I'm working with the leadership team to figure out this 2-page vision document and putting a vision together that they feel excited about, that they can go share with their organization, get everyone running through a brick wall on. So that's an example of a tool that is part of EOS. So it's really a set of tools, less of a software system. One other thing I'd say that I run into pretty often, people will be like, man, this sounds awesome, but I am drowning in what I have. And how am I going to do this? And my answer to that is simple, is EOS isn't something you do on top of what you're doing. It's really the foundation for how you run your business. And it makes a lot of things more efficient. Like I legitimately probably got 5 to 10 hours per week of my life back once we started running on EOS in the company I was the COO for. So it's not extra, it's a change in the way you run your business.
Nice. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, great questions.
I'm curious if you have a story in your work with owners where you've seen it outside of and you're welcome to share yours, but where you've seen the effects of this program, like the before and after.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple come to mind. One is there was a business owner. You'll hear us talk. We talk about visionaries and integrators, and we say that visionaries are kind of the creative people. They love flying at 30,000 feet. Creative problem solvers, great with the big relationships. That's a visionary. They hate getting in the weeds, and they don't like having the tough conversations. That's work best done by the integrator, who's kind of the person that's the drumbeat of the organization. They make sure the execution and accountability is there. So saying that, to kind of put in context, there was a visionary who in the first day, full day we do together, it's called the focus day. And the main thing we do is called an accountability chart. It's like an org chart on steroids, where we're really saying, what is everyone's role and what are they responsible for? I mean, pretty fundamental question, but it's amazing at how people misinterpret that so much. And after one day, we were able to let this visionary delegate these things that his team wanted to do. And 2 weeks later, he's like, I feel guilty. I feel like all these people are doing things and I have like tons more time. And his team was like, we love this. We've never been happier. You're actually letting us do what you hired us to do. And now you can go think more strategically and work on some bigger things. And that was just a really powerful experience of, the owner getting what they wanted, feeling guilty, and the leadership team saying, no, this is what we want too. Like, this works well for us. And so that's just a recent.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I like that story. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, we're already, this is going by really quickly, and I know we have a hard stop at 4. I want to ask you about private equity, but I also want to ask, like, for people that are watching out there, maybe now or in the future, like, what if they want to learn more about this, specifically with you? Like, do you have a program to share just kind of some of the stuff we talked about in a more in-depth type format?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I would put them on, I'm actually going to, I didn't think of this earlier, but I am just going to put my website link in here. Perfect. So you're welcome to go to my website there, and they can schedule a 90-minute meeting with me. My contact information is there. I'd love to learn more about their business, their goals, and see if there's a good fit to get them started on the journey.
Awesome. And I didn't see that pop up. I'm going to throw your LinkedIn profile into the chat and make sure people have that there.
Perfect. And I put it in the private chat. I may have
chat.
Put it in the wrong spot.
Yep, I see
I'll find that. I don't see it here. Oh, there it is. There. Okay. That's perfect. I'll move this over. And then before we wrap up, here's, for those of you following at home, here's the Carson's link there. And I'll put that on the screen. Private equity. Give us just a minute on private equity, because a lot of our owners, they're looking to get bought by these larger buyers. Just give us kind of an overview on what private equity is looking for and how that deal works differently than maybe a traditional Main Street acquirer.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, private equity, they're looking for a business that it's an industry they like, they're attracted to the margins, but also something that they feel like they can increase the value of. Private equity, the main way that they get paid is when they buy a business and that business outperforms a certain benchmark called the hurdle rate, and they get what's known as a carry. So basically, if a business was bought for $1 million, private equity firm they raise the money from investors, then they charge like 2% to manage that business.
Mm-hmm.
And the real value for them is that if it is beyond a certain financial point known as the hurdle rate, they're going to get like 20% of that value, which is called the carry. So who it works for is people who want to stick around in their business for a while. It's usually not a quick changing of the guard. It can be, but usually they want to keep you on for a little bit. And also people who still want to aggressively grow their business. So my advice would be to really make sure there's a cultural alignment there, because you're going to be in that business for a while longer if you sell to private equity versus just like an individual buyer.
Well, that's what I call a teaser, because you packed a lot into that short amount of time. But that's what we're going to talk about next time we have you on, Carson, because that is, we meet a lot of folks that are putting up some big numbers, and they're at a point where they know they can't keep it going, and they need help. And maybe they don't want to exit, but I think, we should explore that a little bit more. I know you have a lot of experience there, and I think it's really interesting. So I'm going to ask you if you have anything else to plug. I think we shared the link in the chat where people can get a session with you. And before I do that, I do want to mention we do have coming up next week on the Brokers Babble, we are going to interview an SBA banker. And we did talk to Amanda a couple weeks ago. We're going to have Andrew Wheeler on with Bank of Oak Ridge. I'm really excited to hear Andrew's take on, there's just a lot happening with SBA. So definitely put on your calendar, 3:30 Brokers Babble live, or we'll add that to the live stream library that we're building at RaleighBusinessBroker.com or LinkedIn, Facebook. You can find us in a number of places. I also have a coffee on us coming up at Lorraine's August 25th. So that's just a couple weeks out. That'll be 9 a.m. through 10:30 a.m. We have an Eventbrite for that now. And I think that's all that we got coming up. There is something on the DL that I've got invitations for. Direct message me if you're a business owner and you want to go to a fancy schmancy thing. I can't put it into these comments here, but direct message me for that one. That's a kind of a private event type thing. I'm excited about being on a panel for that. That's what's coming up next. I want to start to wrap things up. Carson, Brian, any last points before we put a button on this one?
Nope, I think you got everything.
Cool. The only thing I would just want to say, you said put a plug in. I would want to put a plug in for the VR Business Brokers of the Triangle.
Well, thank you.
I've heard they've done more transactions than anyone in the world. I saw that tagline somewhere recently. But really, I've seen you guys around quite a bit. So impressed by your professionalism, your relatability with people. So I just appreciate what you guys are doing. You do an excellent job. So thanks for having me on today.
Appreciate you joining us today. Appreciate the plug. We do take our work very seriously. I like to, one thing, I'll tell you one thing that's different about us. We don't call them business sellers. We call them business owners, because you really haven't sold until you sell. So I think that's just a different approach that we take, is that people work really hard to build something of value. And we view it as an honor to help them on that journey. The same way that you're helping them on the journey with your products. We take a similar approach. And I think that's why we're so excited to partner with you. Well, that's a great note to go out on, Carson. On behalf of Carson and Brian, thank you both for being here. This is Neal Isaacs, Brokers Babble. We will see you next Monday.